This is always the moment of truth because we've had technical difficulties. All right, it looks like it's happening. Get ready, you guys. We're going to be live in a minute. They can hear us.
Stop action.
All right, let's go to speaker view. And welcome. We are at Bedtime Stories.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hello. Hello. Welcome once again to the Bedtime.
We're just going to give a few minutes for people to join us. We have some wonderful guests today that we are super excited to have joining us for Bedtime Stories.
It's bedtime.
I want this song made. I really do. I want the song made.
Kalim, wait. I guys, one of our guests tonight is DJ Kalim Shabazz from the infamous Afterlife. Kalim, you can make that song happen for us. So we're going to talk after this.
Okay, we can talk about it.
Oh.
I've got the lyrics written down.
That'd be interesting.
This is what we do.
So I'm Sid Rose, and this
I'm Red. Hello. Hello.
Bedtime Stories. Bedtime Stories is Tales from the Underground. Don't forget to support your friends in New York City nightlife. If you can, give a little love, do so. Thank you for joining us. We have two wonderful guests here tonight. We're going to just go ahead and jump right on in.
Well, our other guest is Mr. Jeremie DeLeon, and he has worked for many years at A1 Record Shop, so he knows a lot of DJs. He knows a lot about a lot of DJs, but he's also an interesting guy himself.
Thank you.
And we are so excited to have you here. Why don't we start with just a little brief synopsis for those people who don't know who you are. Why don't we start with you telling us a little bit about who you are and why you think we invited you to join us tonight for Bedtime Stories, please. Either one. Don't.
You want to start, or you want me to take a
crack?
Well,
why don't you take this one first?
Colleen, could you move over to the middle for our friends on Instagram? Or they should be seeing with your walls. Yeah, that's great right there.
Yes, okay. Right in the
middle. So I actually didn't grow up in New York. I came here in 1998, right the summer when the French won the World Cup. So it was magic for me being here in New York. I grew up in Paris, France. I was a club kid. I was in the hip hop scene. I was in the rave scene. I was basically in the, in the DJ culture. Worked in record shops ever since I was 16. And I moved to New York in 1998. I had family in the States, but I decided to settle down in 1998. I used to spend my summers here in New York or in Massachusetts, and I was always attracted to New York. New York always felt like home. New York is specifically, like a town that has this electric energy, this melting pot, the music, everything. And I was working at labels. I was working for a label called Raucous Records. They had Mos Def, Talib Kweli signed there, Company Flow. And on weekends, I used to work at the record shop. So it was sort of like a part-time gig. I used to get paid store credit. Back then, it was managed by two French guys. Aldo, well, he was Italian, but he was French too. And these guys were like the disco kings. I mean, they knew a lot about disco. For some reason, Italians love disco, and it's like overseas they call that black music. And he was so into it. I mean, he was a very fancy guy too. He was into swinging and into disco, so that kind of like sums it up.
So how old were you at this point?
That was in 1998, 1999. I was I was 22, 23 years old.
Okay, all right.
And eventually they moved back to France, and then I kind of like became, it wasn't really a manager. Back then, the owner didn't want to have a manager, but I was kind of like the senior guy. So I became, you know, I was in the scene, and you know this was like prior to like digital DJs with like CDJs or like Serato. So you know, like we were an important element in the DJ life, because it's like, you know, records were tools, and you know, we had to sell records to these DJs that were playing the clubs and that were loading like 10 crates to the club or more. And you know, like they had back then, like famous DJs had like, you know, their crate boys. So it's like, you know, like they would call the shop to see if a record was there, and they would send their like, you know, intern or crate boy. You know, we're located in the East Village, right next to Thompson Square Park. So you got a lot of like interesting character that roam through the place. You know, you had celebrities, but you also had like, you know, like Joe Schmoes and regular people with like government jobs. And you know, it's a very OCD world. You know, there's a lot of people that are obsessive. I mean, it's like, I'm not trying to profile the regular record collector, but you know, it's like a lot of them are basket cases. You know, a lot of them like are single. No pun intended to any DJs out there that are single, you know. But you know, they're just like, you know, like boys with their grown-up boys with their toys, and they fetish, and they have to have like the perfect mint condition record. You know, the sleeve has to be perfect. So yeah, and so the reason why I feel it's important for me to be here tonight is because even though like I was never really like a night person, I usually worked on Saturdays and Sundays. So I was like, for me to go to shelter was impossible. I mean, like the only thing I could do was go to Body and Soul because it was after my shift. But I mean, it's like I know DJs because over the years I've either catered to them or, you know, bought their record collection to sell it back to the, you know, to new customers, you know, give a revival to their music. I'm not gonna say I'm the shit like other.
But you are the shit.
Right? We told him he could say he was
Say it.
Especially like in this COVID-19, it's like I am like I mean, pre-COVID-19, I love, you know, being nostalgic, but now for some reason I'm kind of, because of like, you know, like we don't know what's going to happen with the shop, if it's going to stay open to the customers or we're just going to go online. You know, I'm more about the future, but I mean, like, I'm glad to be talking about like, you know, blast from the past tonight. I need to like wet my whistle.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, that was a lot of thought about you.
Nicely done.
Nice. Kalim,
Oh wow, I have to
my
top that.
friend for a long time. So why do you suppose we invited you here?
I don't know. I think like I don't know how to answer this. I think like okay, so I think like you know, I did this party Afterlife. I got like sort of really popular from that. I think like we were just, you know, I think I spent most of my adult life sort of in the New York City music industry. Like, you know, I worked in record stores and put out records and all this stuff. You know, I think like maybe I'm like somebody who might have something to say. I don't know. I won't go as far as is the shit, but you know, that's a heavy claim to carry. I think like you know, maybe I have something to say. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, fine. Well, I myself have a question. What year did Afterlife start and how did it start?
What year did Afterlife start? I think like so in college, right? We always had these like little parties on the campus. Like, you know, I had a little radio show. And like we were just like kids, you know? And I graduated in 90. And so I guess I came here and like I moved back to New York in like 91. And like we started this party, right? Like we were just like kids, like, you know, thought we were doing like the campus party, you know. And suddenly this thing like blew up, you know, it blew up. And like we were like you know, like we were these kids who didn't know sugar from shit. and just like I guess this was like in '91, and it just like really quickly sort of turned into this thing, you know. And it was a pretty crazy ride. Like, you know, we had to learn like really quickly like the ins and outs of like, you know, like the New York City promotion thing. Like I remember sort of, you know, going to set our system up, and the competition slashed all our woofers and like, you know, stole all our amps. Like it was a really sort of crazy time at the time. You know, I remember sort of you know, getting raided and paying off police officers, and like, you know, we didn't really know anything, and we really wasn't prepared for like how quickly this thing kind of took off. You know, I mean, that's what I can say about how Afterlife started. It just started like sort of, we thought we were doing the same thing that we had been doing in school, which was like, you know, sort of throwing these little house parties and whatever. And like, you know, on the New York City scene, it just like turned into something else.
So who's we?
It was myself and Rama, you know.
Okay.
I was a freshman at college, and I got kicked out. No, I didn't get kicked out. I was supposed to live in the dorm with these 3 other kids that I didn't know. I arrived to school late, and me and the kids didn't get along. You know, we was down in South Jersey, and Rama was the only other cat from like New York City. You know, and we sort of clicked, and you know, we met. He said, you know, come and live on my couch. You know, and so I was in college, and like, I moved into his apartment, you know, he had like 2 other roommates. I was like their 4th roommate, and like I moved in, and like, you know, we sort of became like best friends from there, you know. And we were just sort of like doing these little parties on the campus. Like, you know, we were the only one at the time. We were coming back and forth to the city, going to like Wild Pitch, and like, you know, yeah, we were the only kids who were like in that school that was sort of doing that kind of thing. You know, and we had these sort of like weekly caravans. We would drive from Atlantic City, you know, up to Manhattan, like, you know, go to the World, go to Choice, like, you know, we were like the happening kids on campus, you know, because we had the New York connection, you know, and so that, I guess that was our inspiration. And like I always kind of played music, like, you know, kind of like as a hobby, and like, you know, we started doing these little parties on campus, and like that kind of took off, you know, got us all popular with the girls, and like, you know, we sort of had it going on, and like, you know, it came time to graduate, and we just thought we was going to do those same little, you know, apartment parties, you know, like we went to rent, got us a little space and all that stuff, and you know, we started doing it, and really quickly we learned that like it was a business, you know, it was a business, and it was a very competitive business. You know, it was very competitive and really underhanded. You know, sort of like the movies almost. It was kind of weird. Yeah. I feel like I'm talking too much. Somebody say something.
No, you're not. We're waiting for you to finish.
Okay, I'm finished.
Cynthia, you want to ask a question? Because I have a question.
I have questions.
Go.
All right. So my question that I always ask, because I always want to know this from everybody that sits in with us, is that, like, you know, all of our lives have revolved around music and clubs and nightlives, and we've like really changed our lives, and they've been molded by this environment. But you know, my experience and most people's experience is that there was like one thing, one song, one experience that actually turned them out and was like, oh my God, I know now why, you know, this has got to be a part of my life, or I need this. What was that for you?
I think okay. I have two of those moments. I think it was actually on the same night. I think I was in I must have been like in 10th grade or something, you know, and I was at Club Zanzibar. So 10th grade, I had to be like, No, this had to be like 80. No, this had to be like, I'm trying to think of what year it was. So I graduated high school in like 85. So this had to be like 82, right? 10th grade, right? I went to this party and fucking there was this, you remember that Indeed last night, a DJ saved my life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it was this special mix that Tony Humphries had, right? It was just the beats, It was just the beats to that Indeed thing. And I just remember it was like, it was just like hard, And it was one of those. It was one of those. It was an unreleased thing, right? It was only him, so it wasn't something that he played all the time.
Right.
But whenever he played it, like I just remember at the time, it was all about sort of trying to get these unreleased records, and everybody wanted that fucking Indeed, like these beats, and it was just like, I don't know, I don't remember it being more than 2 or 3 minutes long. There was that, and then I remember maybe it was the same night, and I remember that Crash Goes Love. Remember that? Crash Goes Love in the night. What is it? Lolita Holloway.
Okay.
Right? Come on, y'all
Right.
gotta know.
I actually don't, so I'm learning something.
All right, so Crash Goes Love. Somebody gotta look that up.
I'll look it up
And,
when it's over. I'm on it.
I just remember they played it, and the Zanzibar system was like, you felt it more than you heard it. Like, the bass was just like, after you left that place, you still feel the bass, like, vibration in your body.
Yeah.
And like they played that record, and I remember the Crazy Ass Light Show. It was just one of those moments that I just felt like, that was the time, that was the first time that I understood it. Like I understood it. I understood like why. I understood what was the shit about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was my
moment. That was your moment. All right,
Club
Jeremy.
Zanzibar, Tony Humphries, 1981, 82.
Right. All right.
Yeah.
What about you, Jeremy?
Back in Paris, I mean, the song that was really popular, I forget which summer it came out, but I forget who produced it. It was JD, Plastic Dreams.
Oh, Plastic Dreams.
Mm-hmm. And I remember going to Portugal that summer, and I was just a kid. I was still in high school, and I just loved it. It was just so magical. I mean, it was a song that, that dancers could be free on the dance floor with it, and, people were into it, And I remember also hearing for the very first time Black Rascals, Keeping My Mind.
Mm-hmm.
And like 20 years later, I remember I went to one of your party up in the Bronx, Red, and Josh Milan was having a little showcase.
Yeah.
I walked up to him and I introduced myself. I didn't know him, and to me it was like almost like shaking Frank Sinatra's hand. People in Europe love Blaze, love Josh, and that was a special moment. I forget who played it back then. I think it might have been Dimitri from Paris, another DJ.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm still like one of their biggest fans.
That's
nice.
Awesome. That is awesome.
It is. I want to know, Kalim, whose idea was the Batty Punch?
Girl, that was coming. Coming.
Actually, that was Rama's idea. And Rama was like,
I had lots of fun with it.
I was kind of green. Like Rama had a lot to do with my introduction to the dance music scene. Like I was a Zanzibar Jersey kid, and Rama was like going to the garage, and Rama was into the New York scene, and Rama was like they had so at the time, like we were I probably shouldn't be saying all this, but whatever.
What is it? The what's it called?
We used to take tabs. We used to take the acid tabs. We'd go uptown and buy the mescaline. They were called tabs. But we, so we developed our own little code. So tab backwards was bad. you know. So we would be like, yo, we're getting bats, blah, whatever. It's like high stuff, whatever. But, you know.
Look, there's a lot of people out there that know high stuff.
Right. So then we made, you know, Baddie Punch, like, you know, so it was really just tab spelled backwards. And the idea came from, you know, Rama swore up and down that they had acid punch at the garage on some nights. And that was enough. That was all I needed to hear. And so that was it, you know. The funny thing about the Baddie Punch, though, it was really funny because a lot of times we would do psychological bat, like, you know, so there wouldn't be acid in the Baddie Punch, right? And it was really interesting to see what people thought, like, you know, when people did the placebo, it was like, you know, the placebo nights was much funner because, like, you know, everybody thought, like, you know, people would come back and be like, oh, the punch is expressly good tonight, blah, blah, blah. And it'd be just like, you know, it'd be just juice water, you know? So that was interesting. But yeah, it was originally Rama's idea. I thought there was a couple of times I thought we were gonna get in trouble for it because, like, it got sort of popular. And, like, you know, and I think also it was at the time when all that shit was happening with the tunnel, where those kids was fucking ODing off of GHB and all that shit. Like, you know, I was just like, you know, there was a time when we were sort of nervous about it, but thank God we never had any problems with it.
Yeah, I think we stayed in our lane.
Yeah, fortunately, right? We never had any problems with it.
And remember, if you knew, you knew, because they had a bat.
We had a bat over it.
Cut out bat hanging over the area of the punch. So those who knew. Those who didn't were just like, oh, there's a bat, a random bat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The punch became like a hit.
Oh, the punch was great.
The punch was great.
Remember, I used to take the bottom of the punch when it was all over. Like, I'll take everything that's left with all the little papers in it. Just saying.
Even it was crazy. Well, I'm not even gonna get into that, but yeah, it was interesting. We should talk about something else now.
Mind if I jump in?
Go ahead. Jeremie, go.
Please.
There were people faking tripping with the placebo batch. Has that?
I thought they really were tripping.
Yeah, I don't think they were faking. Just the placebo.
They just thought they were.
I think the night. I think like the night was you know, it was sort of like more like experiential. So like you didn't just listen to the music, like you sort of experienced the whole night. And so I think like the place kind of lent itself to that. I think like so all week, like when we first did Afterlife, it was done in that bourgeois space, you know, and all week they had drumming, they had like African dancing, they had like, you know, to me, like all week, they had the juju going in that room. Like, you know, there was energy, there was this like, you know, sort of ancestral sort of energy in the room. Like, you know, that they had dance classes in that room all week. And I would go down there sometimes, like, you know, at the end of the dance classes. And they were really sort of, you know, they were really like spiritual experiences, like, you know, going on in this space. And we came at the end of the week and we did a party. So I think like my belief is that energy was already sort of there. And sort of when we came there, it was just like, you know, we just capitalized on like, you know, this sort of really good, you know, spiritual, energetic vibe that was already in the space, you know. So it wasn't hard to have an experience there. To me, Baddie Punch or not.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, Jeremie, I've got a question for you. First of all, how long have you worked at A1?
Over 20 years, 21 years.
Okay, so you are not new to this.
So
right now,
go ahead.
Right now, with what's going on out in the world, and I know the store was closed for a while, and so for you, what do you see for the future of a shop like that? Is it operational in some form right now?
Well, it's operational. We're doing like online sales, Discog sales, but I mean our whole like organization is pretty old school. It's pretty, you know, like you know, the equation is pretty simple. You know, we buy a record collection, we get them, you know, we go through the records, we price them, we put the records on the wall, we put them in the stock. And it's always been pretty easy for us because people come to us. You know, we never really like sent records overseas. We did that at the beginning, but it's like, you know, like it was too much work. And now that we have to do that, it's like we're almost like, I don't want to say like a legit business, but it's a lot of work. It's more work. So as far as the future, I mean, I'm hoping that like one of these days we're gonna find a vaccine and people will be sort of immune to the virus, but I don't think it's ever gonna be the same. I mean, realistically, um, because I mean, like sometimes the shop is so packed. I mean, you know, we have like, you know, it's a small space and we have like 30 people in there waiting at like 3 different stations to listen to records. And it's you know, putting all these records into like, you know, a database that's being sold online is going to take us like it's too much. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's what I was gonna ask, is if was it already cataloged, or this is something
it
you
wasn't.
just
And
kinda.
we should have, you know, but we're lazy bums, you know. And you know,
Because,
it's hard for us to do that, you know.
Yeah.
can I just tell you one thing about my experience when I came to that shop?
Yeah, go ahead.
I sold my records to A1, you know, and I was feeling kind of bummed out about it, like whatever, you know. And I remember when I went to that shop and I saw them bringing the records in, and I saw the look on the kids' faces who was like waiting for the records to come in, and like the excitement that was on their faces and stuff. It reminded me of like me, like when I was like 15, 16, collecting records. And I don't know, I feel like that experience kind of made me feel a lot better about selling my records. And it made me sort of, it made me appreciate what you guys were doing. It just felt like, I feel like, you know, like you don't realize when you're in it, but I feel like it was magic. You know what I mean? It was just like seeing the excitement on those kids' faces. I think most of the records I bought, like I bought that way. I bought used or I bought from somebody's collection, and I felt much better about sort of. I felt much better about like not like I was giving something up or I was losing something. I felt like I was sort of passing something on. You know, I collected those records and I curated that collection, and it was just time to sort of to let it go. And I just appreciated what you guys were doing in that instance, to see those kids there hungry for those records. And like, you know, I think you guys like really catered to them a
I mean,
really
you know,
specific niche.
it's probably like, you know, the best closure you can get, you know.
Right, right,
You know,
right.
aside from like us hunting down collections and all, um,
Hmm.
you know, like the owner of the shop, Isaac, you know, he was prior to that, I mean, he was used to buying like records at auction sales, like, you know, at storage facilities. And, you know, he's got a lot, in 25, 30 years of business, he's gotten so many record collections. I mean, we're talking about, uh, he had Larry Levan's collection that most of it went to Danny Krivit, so it was in good hands, I guess. You know, Red Alert, Chuck Chill Out, other people, and they all lost um, their storage room. And my point is, one day we got a really good collection from a guy, you know, Jeff Brown,
Hmm.
and
Jeff had a dope collection too.
he had a dope collection. But I was so sad. I was so sad because it's like, you know, like it wasn't his choice for him to sell his
Right.
collection. You know,
And I know he took care of his records.
took care of his records, and you know, it's like I don't know what happened. I think he was gone to Japan, and
That's
he had
another story.
kids and all that. Yeah, and I was so sad for him. I was so
Yeah.
sad for him, and you know, and I remember bumping into him in this like little like sushi spot that we used to go on St. Mark's called Go Sushi, and it was 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, damn, he's here. And I was drunk as shit, and I was like, and I saw him, and I was like, wow, we're gonna have like, you know, like some sort of confrontation, and because it's like, you know, like Jeff, you know, he was
Jeff wasn't a confrontational dude though. He wouldn't like. He's not that kind of.
no, but I mean, he, you know, like he came in the shop several times, and you know, it's like, you know, we kind of head butted on prices and stuff like that, but he was actually like, you know, I felt better having a talk with him after that, you know, like, you know,
Yeah.
like my response, you know, it's like I wish we didn't go that route. I wish, you know, like, you know, we're happy to have your records, but at the same time, I wish, you know, you had sold them and you had benefited from that, you know.
Jeff Brown was actually one of my favorite DJs.
He's dope, man. I mean, it's like I
Yeah.
saw him play once, and he's like, yeah, he was a master of rare groove.
Yeah, I had him in Afterlife quite a bit.
Yeah,
He played in the alternative room.
because you had several rooms.
Yeah, we had 3 or 4. Sometimes, you know, depending on whatever. However, there was sometimes we would open up the other rooms if it got too crowded, or if we had like a hot guest DJ, like, you know, that wasn't sort of playing house music and stuff. You know, so Jeff was doing those rare grooves. We had that guy, DJ Spider, who's like a big deal now.
Yeah.
You know, we had Mia a couple of times. We had Adam Scott. Like, we, you know, the requirement for that room was just that, you know, it just wasn't like, you know, 4/4 dance music.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that you wanted to do, you could do. You know? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Who was go ahead, Red. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Did you ever go to the Loft? You know, prior to
I went to the Loft a couple of times. I remember the first time I met David Mancuso. You know, is during our baddie days. You know, we used to take the bats all day and run around Manhattan, hang out in Washington Square Park, and, you know, go over to what's the other, Thompson Square Park. And, you know, at the end of the night, you know, we go to the Loft, and you know, like, we was Jersey kids and shit, and, like, you know, we was in the city. I had about $20 in my pocket. Like, you know, it was about 5 of us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we go to the door and stuff, and we ask the guy how much it is. You know, we don't have enough to get in. And, like, you know, this guy comes out, he was like, yo, you know, he hears us sort of trying to get our money together and stuff. And he was, you know, sort of asked us where we were from and all this stuff. And we was like, oh, you know, we're from Jersey, and, you know, we want to get in this party. You know, so he walked us to the door, and he was like, you know, charge these guys like $5. It was like about 6 of us, you know. And so he charged us $5 for all 6 of us. And, you know, we went in, we had a good time. And years later, I found out that was Dave Mancuso. So that was like, yeah, that was my introduction to this guy. Like, we was just some kids, like, you know, trying to get into this party. And, like, he heard us, like, scraping the ground. And I remember he said, you know, I want you to have enough money to get home. You know, so he was like, how much money you need to get home? And I was like, you know,
sweet.
Yeah, I was like $12, $8. He was like, you know, charge these guys $5. He was like, you know, $15 to get you home. And that was it. I didn't find out years later. Like, I found out years later because I think I went to the party again, and, like, he was DJing, and he was like, oh, that's Dave Mancuso. And I was like, oh, shit. That's the guy who let me in.
Yeah.
That's my Dave Mancuso story.
Yeah, David was an employee at the shop for you know, for a very quick run.
Yeah. I remember he worked at HubSpot for a minute too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was more like, it's not like he was working. He was more like conducting his business. You know, A1 was a platform for him to, like, you know, invite his friends.
But that's what you guys wanted, right? I mean, that's what I think. That's what you
I mean, yeah, it was great to have him, because it's like, you know, we learned so much from him. He would play all these album cuts that were amazing. You know, he would, like, turn like a $3 record into a wall piece. You know.
I think also it gives a, like, you know, it helps to give a little bit of authentication to the shop, I think.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
That's kind of why you have those guys there, I think.
Well, yeah. You know, you always want to have, like, you know, that was prior from being like an influencer, but David was definitely, like, all the Japanese kids were, like, just, like, so happy to be in there.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. All right, what's up? What y'all got? Come on.
Well, we were just kind of letting you guys run the show right now.
Good.
Okay.
Cynthia, what you got? I got stuff.
It was good. So I had somebody that say they were weeping about the story about your record, about the record collection.
It's all right. It's all right.
At the end of that story, should have ended with, like, and then we got the records back.
Yeah, it's okay. We just put it back in, you know, pay it forward, it goes back into the machine. That's all.
Yeah, no, I like the idea of that. I had a question that came to my mind about, like, people letting people in for like $5, right? So I've always had the policy at the doors that I do that if somebody comes up to the door and they really look like they need to go into the party, and they really, like, and they're respectful, but they don't have it, like I'm always in the policy that I'm like, okay, I'll let you in this time, you know, because I wouldn't want somebody to come all the way to the party and not be able to go in and be so disappointed about that, right? Because I know
Mhm.
that, you know, there's value in just the energy that they're gonna bring, right?
Mhm.
So, but what do you think is like, you know, do you agree with that? Do you think that like as a person who has thrown parties,
I think like so. I think like there are from a person who's throwing parties, right? I think there are people who I let in the party for free, right?
yeah,
Just because like I want them at the party,
right,
because I know if they're at the party, I mean I know if they're at the party, it's going to be a better party,
right,
right? And so I'm not even gonna like they're just gonna come for free. And I think like just like there's but so if those people can get them free, I think like there are like why shouldn't like I agree. I feel like what we used to do at Afterlife, if you couldn't afford to get in the party, all you had to do was be part of the end of the night cleanup crew, right? If you're gonna help clean up, pick up bottles and all that stuff, boom, come on in. We had a whole crew of like, we had a whole end of the party cleanup crew. It was about 20 dudes who like all came in the party for free. And and so then it got to the point where like they started being flyer dudes, and like, they sort of became sort of part of this thing. And that sort of became our street team. So yeah, I do think like, like I was a kid,
yeah,
$5. Yeah, hell yeah.
yeah.
You never know.
Um, I for Jeremy, I would love to know like, is there something that's like so? Is there something that like equates similarly in the record store business? I know that it's like a legitimate business, right? Where you have to actually you purchase something and you're selling something. So in that instance, it's a little different. But I know that also that there are people that just come to the record shops to just kind of hang out.
Yeah.
Is there a time when you're like, yo, we got to get these hanging out motherfuckers out of here and let's get some paying people in here? Or like, are you okay with, having people just come hang out?
Well, I mean, we always had a democratic socialist approach to that. I think it's like, like there's a price tag on a record. However, there are people that have budgets, you
Right.
know, and it's all about the way you approach it. I mean, it's like, I've had situation where I've seen people like peeling off, um, price tags and putting like the cheaper ones and all that. And, I'm not gonna lie, I used to do that as well as a kid.
I was gonna say I might have did that a couple of times.
So, I mean, it's like, the way I approach the situation, it's like, I'm never going to put him on blast. I'm just going to talk to them. I'm just going to take them outside. I'm going to talk to them, have a talk. Of course, they're always going to deny it at the beginning and being defensive. And then it's like, it wasn't me. I won't do it again, But yeah, I mean, we work with people. Rarely have we 86 people.
Did you get the 2 records in the sleeve?
Yeah,
People put the two records in one sleeve.
you're re-upping on the records, and it's like, like there's this $30 record, and there's no record in it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just the, it's the nature of the beast, and it's like, we're also like we'll buy a collection of records, so it's like, it's not like we're buying from a distributor, and it's like, we're like making like a $2, $3 mark on the record, so it's like, there's way more room for negotiation and flexibility. And I mean, we work with people, and we never got robbed like at gunpoint or anything like that, and people always respected the fact that it's like, we were like, listen, it's like, I'll bring this is worth X amount, it's like, I'm gonna give this back to you for this much, next time you bring me $20, otherwise you don't come back. And people always come back and pay their dues.
Do you ever find people stuff in the record collections?
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
I mean,
private
I mean, I
pictures and
found
stuff
like in record collection, I found I found a gun, I found like I actually found like an old little like dime bag. It's a Hector Lavoe record. There was this record store, Accidental,
Mhm.
And it was also like a weed spot because it's like, like we actually bought their collection after years of like them being out of business, and in like in the metal tapes were in the,
Mhm.
they're like little dime bags of weed, but it's like it was all like brown, it wasn't even smokable. But yeah, we find that we found a lot of like a lot of nude pictures in those sleeves. It's like, a record crate was kind of like, like the way DJs display their record crates, in their room, they're like stacked up, and like their milk crates. So there's a gap between the records and the top of the crate. So they always stash like books, DVDs, and there were always like, like love letters and
So what was your like your most memorable like record collection buying experience? Like what was the craziest thing?
I almost got jumped once on like Gun Hill Road.
Oh really? Tell us
Damn you,
that.
Gun Hill.
Yeah, and it was like
Boogie
it was a it was a it was like a week morning in the summer. It was hot as hell, and I had to move my car, and it was like in one of those high rises, and I see guys in the lobby. They kind of look like, I mean, they were obviously like Crips, or yeah, because they had the beads. And I go upstairs and I kind of go back and forth like twice to move my car, and then it's like,
They didn't think you was Puerto Rican or something?
I mean, it's like I always like, like my game is I always go like kind of bummy.
That was a joke. That was a joke. You wasn't supposed to really respond to that. But anyway, go ahead.
I mean, and they and it's like, like as I go down, I have like two crates in my hands and I'm holding them like that, and they like walk into the elevator. I was like on, floor 12, and on floor 9th, they come in, and there's just like 5 dudes in there like smoking blunts in the morning. And this guy starts grilling me and like asking me about those records, where did I get them? And he was trying to ask me, he was trying to have me say, yeah, I bought them, I paid. And he kept insisting on that. And finally, I was just like, no, she gave them to me. She gave them to me. She gave them to me. And, it's like, and everything went kind of slow-mo, and the doors open. We were in the lobby, and I just walked out, and I was just expecting the worst. I had like, maybe $1,000 in my pocket, and
And so nothing happened.
nothing happened. But I could sense the energy.
Was the collection worth it?
It was all right. It was all right.
Yeah. All right.
But the experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I had a woman offer me sex once, and I was like, I had to turn it down.
Was she hot?
She was all right, but like I could sense it was in Brooklyn, and I could sense that there was like, another male presence in the
Oh,
apartment.
okay. So it was a setup.
Who knows? I didn't want to be on the front page of the Daily News the next day.
Record collector gets beat up.
Yeah.
I don't assume it was a setup. Maybe she was setting things up.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I mean, she was kind of, she was a little bit of she was a little cuckoo puffs, but she wasn't bad looking, but it was just like,
Oh.
I had an agenda. But it's like my biggest regret in all those years of going to people's home was like not taking pictures of these people.
Right.
Because it's kind of like a conflict of interest. It's like, first of all, it's like, these people have, were kind enough to invite you into their homes, lavish or modest. And I didn't want it to, I didn't want to exploit the situation,
I'm thinking, yeah, people selling records usually they ain't in the best of conditions. I don't know. I'm assuming that, like, that's probably why they're selling the records.
You kind of have to bulk, it's like, if you can cherry pick, cool, but it's like you don't want to be put it, usually people like sell out of desperation because they have and all that. So it's like, it's like I'll take the
That's
whole
what
thing.
I mean.
And, you work out a deal with them, and sometimes they let you pick, I mean, you got to read the situation,
Right.
You walk in and you kind of like, you read the room.
Okay.
But also, like, I mean, I remember once buying like poor guy, man. It was in Chelsea. This guy, like lonely guy, died in his apartment, and they had he didn't really have any friends or family. And it's like the neighbors called after like 10 days because like the smell was like horrific. And so
He
had
died in the apartment, you said?
the apartment, and he had records everywhere.
And you went to get the records out?
What's that?
You went to get the records out, the dead guy's apartment?
Yeah, I mean, it was like his sister had called. I mean, like once, once like they found out that he was dead, and they had like the body was was out of the apartment. There was still a smell in there.
Oh my God.
His sister had she had come from like I think California, and she called us first. Usually people call us first. You know why we're called A1?
Push out A1.
No, because we're the number one in the yellow pages. We're the first number.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, wow.
I was gonna say, because you the shit.
Yeah.
Shit.
And it was just like there was 10,000 records that you had to box up, and we were masked.
Was it good? Was it worth it?
It was all right. I mean, there was like there was a lot of like high energy freestyle, like kind of like a gay club DJ.
So what was the best collection you bought? You don't have to say the person's name. But you have in mind the best collection.
I think Jeff had I think Jeff had it. Maybe I'm saying that, because it was like more like the beginning. But he just had he just had taste, he just
Jeff had really good rare grooves and stuff. You're right. I can see that.
And then it's like, I think Jeff,
Yeah.
Definitely.
Big ups to Jeff.
Jihad sold me some of his records. They were great. Pang Lo sold me his collection too. It was great.
Love Pang.
There was this guy, Dave, that used to, I forget his name, but he used to DJ at the Zanzibar.
Mm-hmm.
He lived in Jersey. He was a truck driver.
Hmm.
There are several type of DJs. They're like the DJs that have like regular jobs, and they have they had a budget to go to the record shops and to buy records. And then they're like the DJs that DJ like 4 nights a week and that just destroy their records, and they really think that they're sitting on like gold. And sometimes when you make them an offer, they're like a little disappointed, but it is what it is,
Right, because the records aren't in good condition.
Well, they were, like they were used.
Right.
And abused. So, that happens,
Right.
I've got a question for you, Kalim.
Mm-hmm.
This is the simple question. Rob Bass would like to know for those of us that know. He wants to know what year did you cut your dreads?
What year was that? That was Jesus, man. What year is this?
2020.
You asking me? I don't know. We don't know
2012.
about it anymore.
So it had to be like around 2010. 2010. So I had to go into the hospital. Like I had to have a surgery on my leg. I was scared as hell, and I was gonna have to stay in the hospital, and I don't know. I didn't want to go in the hospital with long hair. I don't know why. It's kind of a stupid thing, but I just felt like it was a time for change, Yeah. So that going into the hospital and having that surgery on my leg, I had never been in the hospital. I was scared to death, and it just felt like a transformative moment, So I cut it off.
Okay, I remember your surgery.
Yeah.
Did you let go of a lot of things when the dreads? I
didn't think that at the time, but I guess like if I think about that in retrospect, I guess like I don't know if I let go a lot of things, but I definitely think like sort of embracing change was a good thing. I did feel like when I actually cut it and look back on it, like, wow, I kind of was the same for a long time. I had those locks for about 20 years, So it sort of represented sort of like a new phase, I guess. In some ways, yeah. I'm not sorry I cut it. Yeah.
Okay.
Regrets.
I have a question here in the chat, and it was directed toward Kalim, but I would like you to also answer like something toward this as well, Jeremie. It's from our friend Brian Polite. The question is, Was there a record that you played that surprised you with how the crowd responded?
Was there a record that I played that surprised me with how the crowd responded? Um, like recently or ever?
Ever.
Ever?
Ever.
Yeah.
Ever. Okay, I remember once I played dun, 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 dun. People Make the World Go Round.
Ah, yes.
Dun, 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 dun,
That's a
dun.
great song.
Which version?
And it was an experience. I didn't expect that. Like, yeah, it turned into sort of like a, I can't even describe it. Yes.
But
What
I could
about
see it in my mind. I could see
Yes.
it.
Yes. Go ahead, Jeremy. You
what
asked.
about you, Jeremy? Like, yeah, was there a record that like you?
Never, I've never really been a DJ. I mean, I DJ'd.
No, but I mean, in terms of like maybe what has come into the record store, and you're like either
Oh,
positive or negative. It could be like, oh, this is gonna really do well, and then it doesn't, or you think this is not gonna do shit, and it does.
I remember Charlie Rapone from Vinyl Mania. In his warehouse, he sold me some. He had a dead stock of Tata Vega, that album where they have the song "Get It Up for Love," and I never really paid attention to the album cut because it was pressed on a 12-inch, and even the 12-inch sounds amazing, but on the album, there's like sort of like in the middle of the song fades out and then it comes back like stronger than ever, and it's just like the synth is like super powerful. It's kind of like the break of the song, and it kind of surprises everyone. And I remember buying them. I think like I had 15 copies of it, and it's like I'm never gonna sell them. We're gonna sell them like like one every year or whatever. And we sold them like I think like in a week or so. Every time I played it, and this is like pre-Shazam, pre-millennial. You would play a record inside in the shop on a Saturday, and people would like raise their hands and I want this, I want this, I want this. And sometimes when you just have one record, it's like there's like 5 customers like bidding on it. It's like you're teasing them a little bit, but in this case, that's like, all right, I'll give you one, I'll give you one, I'll give you one. You want one? I'll give you one. And to this day, that is a great album cut. I think Dimitri from Paris did an edit of it that's pretty banging too.
Right, I like
Nice.
those answers.
And Jeremy, I have a question for you. In the shop, who might be, the biggest, I guess, celebrity DJ that you have met? And have you met anybody that you kind of like, well, you said a little bit of Josh, but that you kind of fanned out about yourself when they came in?
No, Josh never came in. I met him at
No, I know that, but
Yeah.
I'm saying, have you had this happen in the shop?
You know what? I mean, among all the hip hop producers, the hip hop DJs, the house DJs, I gotta, I gotta say, Timmy gave Timmy Regisford, used to come in. I remember, and he used to double park his Jaguar. He used to come in, not say hi to anyone. He would dig in the cheap section, then go behind the booth and play the record. It would always sound the same, and people were sort of like drawn to him. It was kind of like a less is more situation. He's the silent type, the Cary Grant. And but the biggest celebrity, I mean, we've had Matt Dillon was a regular. We have actors too, Armisen. But like as far as like DJs, there's Harvey, there's Felix the House Cat, there's Little Louis, there's Louis Vega that comes in, there's Kenny Dope. I mean, I have a collection of Polaroids of all like the cool patrons that came in, like famous or not famous. I think I have a Polaroid of you, Red. I have one of Kalim as well. And we might put it in a book. I mean, The guitar player for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, I thought he was a crackhead once. He came in the show, he hadn't slept for like days, and he was pulling out records, and he was with a girl that was just like, you know, rubbing her eyes and just snorting, and they were I was like, you know, you got to understand, we're next to Thompson Square Park. You know, when these guys sometimes get high, you know, they might want to listen to a record and just doze off, you know. And I'm like, I didn't know who he was, and then it's like, you know, he comes to the register with a big stack of records. I'm like, you're gonna buy these records? You know, and I gave him shit before that. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna buy them. And I'm like, are you a producer? And he's like, no. You're a musician? Yeah, somewhat. You in a band? Yeah. What's the name of the band? Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yeah, I heard of you.
Okay.
And but you know, like the regulars, I mean, it's like, you know, the guy that comes in all the time is Danny Privet, you know.
That's actually not surprising at all.
Danny Privet's a fiend. He's got like, he's a fiend. He's got storage rooms full of records, you know.
Right.
He actually bought most of like Larry's collection through Isaac, like before my time.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, we call him, we used to joke around that, you know, kind of looks like an undercover cop, you know.
You guys were like the only shop in town, right? Was anybody else doing vinyl?
No, I mean, you know, there was Dance Tracks before that.
No, I mean like currently, before COVID. You guys were the only shop in town, yeah?
No. There's Academy in Brooklyn. There's like really great shops too. There's Human Head.
Oh, in Brooklyn, right.
Really good. Human Head, they're great. There's Academy. There's another one in Greenpoint that just opened.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, in Manhattan, was there any other shops in Manhattan?
I mean, yeah, there are, but I mean, you know, they're kind of like a dying breed. And Manhattan is town is like kind of like a zombie land right now. I mean,
yeah. I hope that dude comes back post COVID. I think it's going to be sort of like a last man standing kind of thing. You know, whoever survives it'll be the only kid on the block. You know,
whoever survives it will be the shit.
Right.
I mean, you know, listen, I've been doing this for like over 20 years. You know, there's a lot, you know, I have sciatica from like, you know, like muling records up and downstairs, you know. When I buy a collection, it's good, you know, it's like I don't think about my back, and it's just like the adrenaline rush just makes me like, you know, like just mule all that stuff down and like fill up my trunk. But I mean, you know, it's like I know there are kids out there that are thirsty, you know, and I'm not saying that I'm jaded, but it's like, you know, like if I have to like, you know, give the torch to some younger kids, I would definitely do it. I don't want to end up like, you know, like the moody, angry record store clerk, you know, like in my 50s. So
can I just say, so the other night, I was hanging out with Jeremy, and we went by this kid Toshi's house. Like Toshi was some cat who was working at the store for you guys for years, right? And you know, so he moved back to Japan because of COVID and all this stuff. And we, you know, like Jeremy came by and got me. We went by his house, you know, because it was his last night. You know, it was a little bit sad, but we didn't really sort of talk about how sad it was. But I have to say, it was like a couple of young cats there, you know, young kids there. And I have to say, dude, like talking to those kids was really sort of inspirational for me, you know, because they were like kids, and like they were young, and they were so like hungry for it, and they were so into it. And I think like, you know, again, I think that you guys are, you know, sort of keeping it alive and keeping it young and keeping it fresh. I feel like when I go to that store, like I don't see old club heads there. Like, you know, I see like young kids there. And I think that's like, you know, a good thing. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's good to have like, you know, like the OGs there, but you know, it's also good to like embrace, you know, like the kids that are thirsty, they're full of questions.
Right.
You know?
It was nice to see and experience.
I remember even like, you know, it was this kid Jansen, who I hired, and he saw you and he said, Kalim Shabazz, he says, I love your Instagram. It's so unpretentious. It's always
right. Yeah. It was just really rewarding talking to those kids. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all I got, guys. Sorry.
All right. What's next?
Sin, what you got?
Well, I always like to like ask the dream question of like, if you had a dream person to like have some musical experience with, who would that be? It could be dead or alive.
Who would that be? So what you mean, like any kind of musical experience?
A musical experience.
Anything you dream.
Experience. It could
So,
be.
so you know that record, I always thought about this. I always thought, you know that record Martin Circus?
Yep.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
I always imagine like, I always imagine what the studio session must have been like, right? Because they're not singing anything, like they're just like, boom, boom, they're just making noise, and it was like the pre-digital era. So they had to do all that stuff, like, and put it on tape and later. I was just like, I think that would have been a really interesting studio session.
That's a great,
yeah.
great answer and a great thought.
Yeah. That's what I got.
Anything for you, Jeremy?
I think Womack and Womack, they're my favorite like band, in the family structure. It's like in I don't know how many albums they have. I think they have 4 or 5, but they've continued to make music from like the 80s to like I think like 2000 when like Cecil Womack died. But they had like a bunch of kids. They kept moving. Every year they would be in a different location. You could just feel the love in every song that they've produced, and you can feel that there's like kids around roaming around the studio session. There were Sam Cooke's daughter, I forget her name, but the one that sings like Teardrops and like Baby I'm Scared of You. Her and Cecil Womack, they were undeniably soulmates, and you can sense it in the music. It's not like a duo of a male and a female being in the studio and it's like like behind the scene, it's what's love got to do with it, like
Baby, I love you.
You can feel it.
Exactly, you could feel the love, the genuine love, and they were always touring, they're always traveling. They moved back to Africa. They lived I think towards the last years. And it's like, I remember seeing them like live in Paris when I was a kid, and they're just amazing. One of my favorite groups. Timeless music.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
So is there anything that you have coming up that you'd like us to share with the watching, viewing audience? We love to give you an opportunity to like share if you have something that you have coming up, or if there's something.
I mean, I don't got nothing coming up. I don't have anything coming up. I'm still doing some releases on Toshi's label. We put out we got a single that just came out maybe about a month ago, Joy. I'm sorry, I can't even recall the name of the label, but yeah. But I'm not like, I'm not actively like sort of doing stuff and promoting stuff, but like, I still occasionally put out a song or two, but nothing like, nothing worth like sort of promoting, like that.
Well, in a minute, you're going to produce the song for this.
Bedtime
story. That's coming up.
Bedtime story anthem.
That's coming up.
Yeah, okay. Why not?
Why not? Right.
I'll do all the ad libs in the back. Red will sing.
There you go.
There
you go.
We'll see what happens.
Jeremy, anything to tell us about?
Nothing in the works. Aside from working at the record shop, I co-wrote a script for a feature movie that was supposed to be shot in Ohio in October, but because of COVID, it got postponed. So I don't know, when that's gonna happen. But other than that, it's like I hope like the shop stays alive, and I have 2 kids, so it's like we don't know where we're going with this back to school situation. So I think 2020, this is the year where I rediscovered weed. I'm staying in the moment sometimes because it's like it just like takes the edge off, and I'm not focused on on the future as much. I mean, my future is like this week. That's it. We'll see for 2021.
I have a question for you guys, right? So since you guys have been doing this, right? What has been the most, I don't know, meaningful, inspirational, impressionable thing that you guys have encountered from sort of doing these bedtime story format? That's to both of you guys.
I've got an answer for that for myself.
Okay. Uh-huh.
There was a specific episode we did, and it was with Cynthia. You probably have to help me remember his name, but with Luce.
Uh-huh.
Un.
Luce and what's his name?
Art.
Thank you. Uncut Art, who's sort of a rebel artist.
Yeah, he's
Mhm.
And they came on, and we kind of, we start off each episode light, just fun. We always expect to laugh a little and just kind of, do what we do. And they both came in and were just like, and I said it out loud while it was happening. After each one of them would say their answer to something that we just thought was simple, it would be like, "Ooh, I've got to just give me 10 seconds because I'm taking all of this information in and nobody was expecting it to be so deep, but
Mhm.
so good." And it made
Mhm.
people think, and like people are commenting and they're like, wow, and like that was deep, and it was just really, really good. And it was inspirational to just hear the things they said, and they made you think. It wasn't just so simple. And
Mhm.
I liked it. I liked it.
Okay. All right. Cynthia, what you got?
I think that each session has been like special in its own way. And like when we first started doing these and we first started talking about them and thinking about like what we were going to do, we kind of had our ideas about like, yeah, we want to get these stories from people because we know that there's lots of fun stories, right?
Mhm.
But I feel like we've gotten so much more than that,
Mhm.
right? We've gotten so much more than just like fun stories or stories even just from the underground. We've gotten stories about how people have changed people's lives, people, their interactions with one another. And yeah, some of them have been fun. Um, but it's always different. And so for me, like, there isn't necessarily one thing that I could say that is like stands out or is striking, but I think that each time there's something that's striking, and each one there's something that's different that
Mhm.
that continues to inspire me and makes me want to keep doing it.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, but
Mhm.
there's not necessarily like one particular story that I'm like, oh shit,
Mhm.
that was the best, or like
Mhm.
I don't think it was.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate you guys are doing this. I think like, I don't know. It's like it's like a cultural thing, like a sort of like a, I don't know. So like I don't know. It was most of my adult life, and sort of was spent doing this thing. And I think like, I don't know. I think it's like a nice way to sort of like preserve history. I like that you guys are sort of recording them and putting them up. So like, these things will always sort of exist. And so maybe at some point, when somebody is like, I don't know, doing a PhD on New York City dance music scene, this could be sort of like,
Right.
a source, an informational source or something. So I think like, I think it's good to capture and like preserve history in this digital era, because everything is so temporary and everything is so fleeting. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was.
Don't be sorry. That was
I
great.
agree. I agree with you 100%. I think that that's one of the appeals of this whole thing is that, like, we know that, we've lost so many people already,
Mm-hmm.
and, everybody's going to go.
Right.
Who's going to carry the torches? Who's the
Right.
people that are not us, like the people
Mm-hmm.
that come after us will
Right. Right.
right?
But
Right.
also, who's going to remember us?
Right.
Right. Who's
Because
going to tell
like
your
you said,
stories?
a
Right?
lot of your adult life, that's all of us. And that's the part
Mm-hmm.
where we were like, wow, we've known and danced with and hung out with some of these people for 30 years. But for some of them, we don't know that much about them.
Don't really know too much about them other than
And
that.
that's also very interesting to learn some of the background of some of the people and what they're doing and realize that there's a lot more to what we see. you
Right.
know? So that's also really cool as well. Because sometimes I'm surprised when DJs are like, I'm doing this and this and this, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know all of those things were
Or I
happening.
had
That's
this
awesome.
film out in this time, and I did this, and I
Right,
did this, and I used to travel here. And you're like,
Mhm.
wait a minute, what? You know.
Right.
right.
So that's
People got more depth than just the dance floor, huh?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and it is important for us to share that with each other. You know,
Right.
to have
Right.
it documented, and um, you know, I think that like even in this, we had a list of folks that we wanted to like our first list,
The master list.
master list of like who do we want on here, and even each time afterwards, we're like, okay, we've had them, but we're probably gonna have to have these people back again
Yeah.
because there's
Mhm.
so much more.
Mhm.
You know? But
Yeah.
first, we got to give everybody a chance, and that's gonna be the tough
Yeah.
part.
I like that you said each time is different, you know, and I think that speaks to like the authenticity of it all. Like, you know, it's not really scripted and folks are just kind of shooting from the hip, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. This was awesome. Even you two were awesome. Me and Cynthia, you can't, I don't know if you guys are talking, so you don't see the eye contact that her and I are having. Like, so we're just gonna let them go on because
Mhm.
they're asking each other questions, and I'm just like, all right, so you guys are gonna run the show. This is great because you're comfortable with each other. And so
Yeah.
it's just kind of flowing, and that is also something new that has happened that is awesome. And it's the shit.
The shit. There we go. Maybe you should change it to the shit.
Yeah.
There you
I don't know
go.
if the algorithm of YouTube will allow that.
Yeah. There you go.
I think it's a great opportunity. I mean, it's like, I'm a sucker for podcasts, for hearing people talk and shoot the breeze. And I know, like, like in the pop, rap and R&B, they're already doing it. And I think, it's a great opportunity for people in this scene to have a conversation, because when we go to the club, it's like, we're always interrupted. It's kind of like we can have deep talks, but they never, they're always
But not really, you know.
not really, exactly. They're always like, it's always a little bit on the surface. So now
Right.
that we can go like, in the nitty gritty and go more in depth. And I think it's like after COVID, I hope you guys, like go get a studio at Apple Music or, Red Bull Academy, because it's like, this is definitely information that, like the kids love to hear, they're like, the whole dance music scene from the 80s, the 90s is fascinating for like kids all over the world, or kids like in New York right now. So it's like, keep doing it, keep, bringing that information out,
Information, inspiration.
Exactly.
Yeah. With that being said, I would like to know, just from, so I know that like obviously the record purchasing scene has changed over the years, right?
Mhm.
Because originally, it was the main source of you being able to find music, right? Now there's so many other sources for you to find music. Um, I'm curious about like, what do you think should be preserved about like record buying,
I think,
or how does that like translate into digital music buying?
well, it's two different things, but they're not really like clashing. I think, it's like, when the digital, at the beginning of the digital era, there was all these debates, what's better, digital or analog. It's like driving a stick or driving an automatic or shooting film or digital. It's, they're not really clashing anymore, because it's like, buying records is a hobby for many people. And for other DJs, going on like on Bandcamp or Tracks or iTunes is another way. So it's two different ways, and it's like, they're kind of coexisting. And if I would love to have like more digital stuff pressed on vinyl current, but it's also hard. It's also hard for them to go to the pressing plant. There's not a lot of pressing plants anymore. Um, they're they're swamped with like orders from like major labels, and not necessarily like independent labels or small labels like they used to. And but I'm not going to knock down progress in technology. I think it's great for like these guys that have paid their dues 30 years to like, just walk into a club with like, a stick and some headphones.
Right, and not have to lug up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
stairs and like.
I hate it. I hate when people are like overly like, purist and nostalgic about, he's not playing vinyl. I'm like, bullshit. It's
Can I respond to that?
yeah.
So I do like the idea, like what you said, like sort of they sort of became like they're two separate things, and like they don't clash with each other. And so I like the idea that like sort of like the music, the vinyl thing, the record thing, it's sort of separate thing, and it's to me it's seen more as like the original art form. It's to me it's taken on a perception of kind of like more prestige, sort of more original, and so I think it made this sort of like this niche of buying records and collecting records made it even more special and even more sort of like particular, because it is seen as a separate sort of respectable thing. Like I think there's something about especially for the kids, there's something about going to a party and seeing a DJ pull up a record, like and put it on a turntable and sort of actually do that. So I do think like I like the idea that there's room for both, and like they're seen as two sort of respectable entities on their own.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we don't. But again, it's like there's a lot of guys that have like great vinyl collectors that are not the best DJs out there. They have all the ingredients, but they can't really chef it up.
There's always those cats.
Yeah. I got this. I got this. The guys that
I like what you said. They got all the ingredients, but they can't cook the meal.
Yeah, it's like these guys that you always see in the booth, but you never seen them dance on the dance floor.
Right.
And we're talking about dance music.
Another story.
All right.
I gotta say, I just want to add that the records, in my opinion, it's a different skill set if you're a DJ.
Right.
And that is very interesting because it's almost like people that collect those little collectible cars that they put together and now they're on a fancy shelf and now they're worth something. The people who will buy a record knowing that they're never going to play it.
Right.
Like I'm never, this is like a trophy. And that's also very interesting.
But even like sort of like, the shelf life of a digital release is sort of like, like 10 days, people kind of forget about it.
True.
Because there's so much going on and so much saturation. It's really hard to get, to me, if you don't have an actual tangible product, like an actual thing that you can hold, it's sort of hard for that thing to like sort of exist, especially in the digital era, because everything is so transient. Everything is like so fast and things get old so quick. So.
Yeah. I mean, again, there's a lot of like, there's a lot of dead stock of like, very bad curated music pressed on vinyl. And, in the era where like, labels had to press like 5,000 copies of a single. And, what do you do with them after that? I mean, sometimes the pressing plants, if they're like unopened and untouched, they'll recycle them.
But even like we don't know. I think like even like who knows? Like 20 years from now, they might be sampling those records, and that shit might become like, yo, we want to, we're looking for these terrible ass house records that like, that got this thing, like, you know what I mean? Like who knows? You know what I mean? I like that they exist.
Crappy record.
Who knows?
Timeless, and there's also like bad music. That's a reality. Subjective, but there's bad music that just is forgotten. And
I think about how many records when they came out, I thought was like terrible records. They was bad records, and like now I listen to them and I kind of appreciate them.
Yeah.
So I think even that's kind of like relative, I don't know. I imagine a time when bad records become good songs or something. I don't know.
You know what? Maybe there's a market for rare MP3s and like use the hard drives.
I think that there's a market for bad music, and I'm going to tell you why. My daughter, who is 17 years old, plays all these off-key records of the 80s to me.
She's the customer.
She plays them for me. Like they come out and it's like you know, it starts out as like you two and you hear the music and you're like, oh yeah, I love this song. And then they're singing all off key and shit. And like, turn that shit off. How dare they? Fuck this, you know?
But she likes it, right?
So I think that, you know, there may be a market in the future for like bad music, just,
Right,
Music.
right.
you know,
Jeremy, you could have a whole
for
section
spoofing
called
purposes.
bad samples.
Right.
Mhm.
Just for spoofing purposes and like, you know, who knows?
That was the thing for me when I talked to those kids that night at Toshi House. It made me realize how limited my box is, you know, because like they was talking like the way I was talking about stuff, like, oh, that's a gospel house, blah blah blah, and they were just like appreciating the music value of it. So like, you know what I mean? So like just the way that they were hearing the stuff was like totally different from me, and it just like really made me appreciate it because you know I could only hear it one way. You know.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely unbiased.
Right, right.
About,
Right.
about-
So the thing about that too is it translates even to like the club scenes, I think. You know, that there's the way you hear things is different, right? The way you
Right.
experience it is different because you learned it differently.
Right, right.
So what do you think is necessary for people, for us to preserve like this club scene today that'll allow
So you know what those kids told me? Those kids told me just keep doing it. Like don't worry about it. He said just keep making music, just keep teaching us. He said you guys think about it too much. He said just keep doing it. And so I think like just keep doing it.
yeah, he's right.
Yeah.
They are right.
Prove it.
Yeah.
I
Prove it.
think that the just keep teaching us part is really important about that.
Right.
Because
Right.
I think that like, you know, we like we all grew up and went to clubs, right? But we went to
Mhm.
clubs, but there were older people there. We were
Right.
young.
Mhm.
Right.
Those older people taught us like when they're grooving like that and you see them dancing, don't fucking walk between them.
And
Right.
don't go over to that corner unless you're doing floor moves because you're going to get kicked in the back of your head.
Right. Right.
So I think that there's like something to that. Don't stop teaching us like things.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the teaching will be you must welcome them. Well, not even welcome. You have to just make space for them. You don't have to welcome them. Make space for them because they want to be there. And I often say about our current house music scene, some people are, for lack of a better word, haters on whoever's not us because we did this, we know each other, we built this city.
I went to
But
the garage. I went
I
to
say
the
it's kind of like
you know.
something where I say, if you're going to hold on to this so tight, you're going to squeeze it to death.
I'm thinking
Have to
even
let people in.
also like sort of be open to the idea that like they don't learn how we learn.
But they want to
You
be
know?
there too, and they're
And so
us. They
and
are
so
us.
I thought I was just putting out records, but I didn't realize I was teaching them something. So my thing is like what he was saying is like, you know, just sort of keep doing what you're doing. Like don't worry about whether we receive it because we're receiving it. Like, you know, and so like the idea that like they learn totally different, they experience things totally different from us. You know, and I'm sure like when we were watching those old heads, like, you know, they wasn't hearing the stuff the way we were hearing it. Like, you know, it was like their own thing. And so we took it and we did our own thing with it. And so we just I feel like we just have to kind of trust the process more. And like they gonna get it. They already got it and it's already happening. All we have to do is just sort of keep being and doing and being authentic to it. And that's it. Like, you know, it'll continue to go on. Those people who came before us, they didn't sit us down and teach us stuff. We just watched and we picked up and we carried the torch. And I think like that's the same thing that this next generation is going to do.
But can I say something about New York? New York
Mhm.
has like pretty good. I mean, like in the dance scene, I think you guys have pretty good club etiquette compared to Europe. I mean, if I have to compare walking into a club in New York versus one in Europe, in New York, the floor is powdered and it smells like weed. And in Paris, it's like the floor is sticky because people are like dancing, doing a two-step with their drink and like, you know, like knocking their drink on the floor. And, you know, there's cigarette butts everywhere. And it's like, it's hard to like, they don't really respect, you know, the element, the floor. And maybe like club etiquette could be like a good little like coffee book manual for
I've said that should be
understand
a
that too.
booklet. A booklet. It
Booklet,
doesn't
yeah.
need to be a big book, but a booklet.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Yeah, it is.
The thing, Ejo, some years ago, Ejo wrote down some of the rules of house music,
Like
and he
a
made
house
it into
101.
like, yeah, he made it into just like one page poster, but he wrote like some of the rules of how, I don't know if he called it house music etiquette, but it was very similar. And he wrote, I think it was like 12 things that were simple, but if you did them all, it would make your experience so much better.
It would make for a better
And
night
simple
overall.
stuff.
Yeah.
What you think, Kalim?
I said it would make for a better night overall
Overall,
for everybody.
Yeah.
you go.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that. All right. So what else?
I think we're ready for a part 2.
I think so.
So, well, I want to thank you both for being here.
Yeah, this has been great.
Such a pleasure and a joy to have you and share this conversation and time with you. And I'm so thankful just to be in the same space with you, even if it's virtually. So
Thank you guys for having me, for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, this was great. And, you know, it was very interesting. I think you guys are the together, because I've had other close friends on here, but the two of you together, because of our own relationship, this was extra fun for me. And that's why I was like, they're talking, let them talk. Like they're fine. It was great. So thank you. But it was also really interesting, you know, some and
I was quite nervous about it, but you know, it turned out better than I expected.
and like those kids said, don't overthink it. Just
Don't
do it.
overthink
That's what I
right?
told you.
Yeah,
And Jeremy,
that's
it's really
true.
interesting to hear about the other end of things. Like sometimes this is where you're at the starting point and we're at the ending point. And so that's also really cool. So thanks to you both.
Yes.
Part of the
Thank
same-
you. Thank you guys.
All right. Well, on that
All right.
This has been Bedtime Stories. We're going to sign off now, I suppose.
We're gonna sign off. Wait, one more thing, Jeremy.
Yes.
Jeremy just got married, so congratulations.
Congratulations,
I love you
Jeremy.
and your wife and your babies.
Thank you. Thank you. It was actually a Zoom wedding.
I know all of, I freaking cried to your wedding song a couple of days ago. So
Oh.
so yes, thank you everyone. And I'm Red. She is
Rose. I am
Yay.
Rose. Thank you for joining us for Bedtime Stories. Thank you to everybody who tunes in, and thank you to our guests,
And thank you.
Jeremie DeLeon and Kalim Shabazz.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Good
Bye.
night.
Ciao.
All right.
Okay.